Make Your Move Monday. This is Latrice McFadden coming to you live from Durham, North Carolina. For Make Your Move Monday, I'm excited to be back in Durham, North Carolina. I've been traveling for the last week plus. So I'm excited to be home and with you with my special guest today who's coming to us from Johnston County in North Carolina, Miss Rose Thomason with Operation Hope. She participated with our Building Black Wealth session back in April for the Realtist Week for NARAB. And so the information that she provided, I thought was excellent. And so I immediately invited her to be my guest on Make Your Move Monday. And she is so busy. This was the earliest day that we could coordinate, and I'm happy to be able to squeeze into her schedule. She was telling me what her day looks like today, so I'm so honored that she did take the time out to spend some time with us and educate us, tell us a little bit about herself and what Operation Hope and all of the good services that they have to offer. So Rose, thank you so much again for joining us. Would you please introduce yourself, tell us what you do and how long you've been doing it and why you do it?
Well, Latrice, thank you for inviting me. I'm always happy to assist anyone in need, especially when it comes to the financial side. My name is Rose Thomason, and I do service or coach and counsel the North Carolina area. I have been coaching and assisting people since 2012, and I worked for a HUD agency, and then I had an opportunity from Operation Hope to actually join their team. And I took the opportunity as quickly as I can because Operation Hope is a nonprofit organization that's been around since 1992. And guess what, folks? We do not charge for any, and again, we do not charge for any of our services. We are here to assist you, whether it comes to creating a small business or maybe cleaning up your credit or
Mhm.
buying a home or preventing foreclosure or even assisting and routing people when it comes to disaster recovery. So I am here to let you know that my specialty is I am a certified HUD counselor for housing, for foreclosure prevention, as well as financial literacy. So I'm always coaching someone back to back, and I'm looking forward to assisting any of you that might be listening on and planning on achieving a financial goal, whether it be next month or maybe it's like a year down the road or 2 years down the road. But you will be taught how to put your steps forward in achieving those financial goals. Um, and if you guys want to ask me any questions, I'd be happy to answer. So, like today, I had several coaching sessions and follow ups already. And that's what I was telling Latrice, and she's shaking her head.
Yes, your schedule is woo. That is quite a schedule that you gave me for just today. And I know we already talked about Thursday. Thursday's booked. So tell us a little bit about the history of Operation Hope before, like how did it get started? And you have a wide range of services. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Operation Hope started out in 1992 during the Rodney King riots. And if you
Mhm.
notice, there was so much commotion. And so, what our chairman, John Hope Bryant, decided to do was he said, these people need to be taught instead of violence. Let's get up and be strong financially to fight all these,
Mhm.
injustice that we have been experiencing. And when I say injustice, it means that we're being left out. And so he wants to reel us back in, educate us, strengthen our minds in order for us to achieve the financial goals that we need to achieve. So
Mhm.
since 1992, we've been around, and we started out, with just a small little office. As you know, everybody starts out with a small office. And now we are, I mean, if you go to the Operation Hope website, and if you
Mhm.
look under the locations, you will see all these dark blotches on the map
Mhm.
of United States, and that is where Operation Hope has grown. And our
Wow.
website address is
Mhm.
www.operationhope.org. So again, www.operationhope.org. Um,
All right. I just posted that in our Facebook
yeah.
chat. So,
So basically, and that's the reason why I joined Operation Hope, is because in the past, as a HUD counselor, um, it, when you talk to me 15, 14, or half an hour or an hour, have to pay a fee because of my
mm,
certification and because of my specialty. And so, but Operation Hope, we are sponsored by really generous, partners such as Truist Bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. Those are all our partners. And they put us in locations whereby we can strategically help those in need that are looking to achieve their financial goals. So
so when people come to you, what's the most popular? Is it home buying? Because I know you mentioned home buying. You mentioned starting small businesses and some other things. What's the most common financial goal that you work with?
it, it would be the credit money management program because um, to be transparent, when you're starting a business, when you're wanting to buy a home, when
Mhm.
you're trying to buy even a car, it all stems from your personal credit report. Even
Mhm.
when you're trying to create a business, it stems from your personal financial report. And with that being said, so most of the time, I would see a majority of people trying to cure their credit in order for me to bring them to the point whereby they can buy a home, they can set up a business, or they can buy a car, or even just get a personal loan. So that's
Okay.
what mostly.
And so, what's the most common? Like, do you see more people that have gotten themselves into credit trouble, or do you see people that let me learn before I get into credit trouble? What's your most common client
It's actually a
profile?
combination, but majority are those that are already in financial trouble. But
Okay.
the interesting thing is this: when they sit down with me one on one, guess what? Have them do a budget because they never really do a budget because all they do is online banking, but they never pay attention to the amount of money that goes out and the amount of money that comes in and the bills
Right.
that have to be paid. And so after I make them see what their budget actually looks like, there's usually a surplus income. And I say, what happened to that income?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't
Mm-hmm.
even have a single penny in savings. That is the scary part. So, from the budget, I would make sure that they know the importance of emergency savings. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where most of us run into trouble during the pandemic because nobody had a single penny in their savings account to pay their bills. So, again, the credit money management is the root of all the problems we see because people are unable to actually achieve those financial goals because they don't know what happened to their surplus income. They don't have a single penny in savings. And so I have to teach them the importance of all these things that have to be set up. And especially, people don't know this, Latrice, is that when you have savings, I usually teach them different kinds of savings. One is the emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Do not
Mm-hmm.
touch that, place it in a different bank if you would like to, because you have to walk into that bank and take the money out. So you're not tempted to spend that money until an emergency does occur, such as job layoffs, a loss of job totally, or you're just sick and you don't have sick time or short term disability or long term disability to help carry you over until something kicks in and helps you pay the bills and money starts coming in. And then I teach them the other type of savings, which is called the maintenance savings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People go, what is maintenance savings? I've never heard of that, Rose. I said, don't you maintain yourself? Don't you want to buy new tires maybe in a year's time? Is your
Hmm.
washer dryer going to go kaplunk? And then what you going to do?
Other
And
than pulling out a credit card. I think my daughter calls it sinking funds accounts. Is that the same thing?
um,
The same thing as this?
I just call it the maintenance because it's an easy terminology, because it
Yeah.
also implies you are maintaining a thought that's going to be coming down the road sometime. And
Hmm.
savings could be for birthdays,
Hmm.
Christmas, right? They don't change every year, anniversary,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So all of these have to be under maintenance because you are going to continually put money there until the time comes and you take money out. And then you go buy a birthday present, anniversary present, or even vacations, right? So you can
Right.
plan ahead of time, like a year ahead, to go on vacation. So those are some of the things that I see that people have not maintained, and they make good income.
Mhm.
Honestly,
I
they do.
heard that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they make good income, but they're not doing the job of tracking the money. And then they
Do
go,
you
go ahead.
I say, do you think that because when I first started having a bank account and everything, I had a ledger and we had to balance that checkbook against the statement. Do you think that that is a difference that may people a reason people don't necessarily maybe keep track of their money because online it's so free and you don't necessarily have to see it. Do you think that makes a difference that back in the day people used to balance that checkbook every week, every month and be able to see what was coming in and out?
Well, that's the thing. When it goes electronic is great when it comes to bill payment and being on time when you pay your bills. But then if you don't keep track of it, you end up overspending. You end
Hmm.
up spending money on things that you really don't need to survive with, because sometimes wants end up being in a corner of your closet collecting dust, right? So
Yes,
yeah, there
absolutely.
is a difference between what they call old school and new school. But
Hmm.
still, you have to pay attention to the balance. And I always, Latrice, tell people to check their bank accounts at the end of each week to see where they are with their money and whether their savings is being posted correctly, whether their payments for their credit cards are being posted, because all those need to be in check if you want to be financially successful.
Okay. Okay. So how the person comes to you, you have a one-on-one counseling session, or how does that start? And then what is the process? Like, does someone stay with you do they check in with you monthly? Do they check in with you quarterly? They go for a year, or how does it work?
Sometimes it depends, it's case by case. Because if you
Mhm.
tell me you want to reach your goals by a certain time, then we would have to check in with you every 30 days. Or maybe in 2 weeks' time, you turn around and you say, "Hey, Miss Rose, I paid all my collections," and I say, "Yay!"
Mhm.
And I would give them congratulations and all that stuff. But they do check in with me until they reached to a certain score, and we like to get them up to where they are at the 700 score.
Okay.
This 700 is so attractive to any lender. And
Yeah.
also on top of that, they will work with you on how low they would give as an interest rate to you when you're trying to get a loan. So the higher your
Mhm.
score is, the lower the possibility that would be lower interest rates for your loans. So they do
Exactly.
come to me with really low scores, and
Mhm.
we do a soft pull of the credit report, which does not dock their credit score that's sitting out there. And we have a contract. So the FICO score is what we will show them. And we will tell them why it's low. These are the reasons why it is low and what we need to do. And most of the time, Latrice, I met this couple maybe a month ago, and they had
Mhm.
7 credit cards. And then I showed them they both are making a good amount of money, but they don't have good, healthy savings. So we have to decide how much they can put aside and how much they can actually reduce all their debts and pay their cards down. They paid off 5 credit cards. Now they only have to work on 2 more.
Wow. What time period were they able to do that by getting a budget with you?
That's correct, because they didn't understand that the power of money is better together as a partner, especially if you're husband and wife and you're trying
Hmm.
to buy a home. And that's what they're trying to do. They want to buy a home, but their credit scores are in the 500s, which is not very good. So I
Right.
taught them to reduce their debt. I taught them
Hmm.
to pay off some of their collections. I taught them to actually reduce all their credit cards. You remember they had seven, right? So they paid off
Hmm.
five. So now they only got two large balances on two credit cards. So when you do
Hmm.
achieve that, guess what? Your score is going to go up in 3 months' time. So
Exactly.
yeah, and people do not know that scores actually go up every 90 days, because
Mm.
the creditors need time to report it. It needs to get
Hmm.
posted correctly to the three
Hmm.
credit bureaus. But there's so many success stories, such as I helped this veteran who did not know why his score is so low.
Mm.
Said, well, let me take a look. And I told him, and I recommended him to actually go and call the creditor and then and dispute it, because it's not his credit card. So he
Oh.
called them, talked to them one on one on the phone, and then they
Hmm.
were able to take it off because they could see that it was not him that actually applied for that card.
Wow. Was it
So
somebody you knew, or was it loan fraud, or?
no, it was somebody within the family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, somebody
Wow.
actually but put his name on it. Does that make
Mm.
sense? Yeah. So, and I said, no, if this is not yours, and guess what? His credit score went from 540 something to 700 within 3 months.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah, because
In
he
the
did
800 club.
not. He was, and I had to let him graduate because he did meet the 700 club standards, and then he turned around and got himself a secured credit card from the bank. So now he's learning how to raise score further, because he's also a
Hmm.
business owner.
Hmm. Hmm. So you help people with that. And I guess one of the things I would say or ask you is, like, if they do pay off those credit cards, do you advise that they just pay them off and keep them open, or do you advise that they close them?
Well, closing them would impact your score. So what you want
Hmm.
to do is put activity on them. So you can
Hmm.
put $50, you can buy something for $50, but turn around and pay them off. Don't leave a
Hmm.
balance, because the balances is what raises, the interest rate is incurred on them. So it becomes,
Hmm.
if let's say you left a $50 balance, with the interest rate nowadays, it might be 60 now. Why are you paying them an extra 10?
Right.
When you've
Exactly.
budgeted for it and you're going to pay it anyway with your debit card, use the credit card and then turn around and pay it off, because you budgeted for that expense.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's how you would raise your scores.
Okay. So let's talk about, obviously, in real estate. I love to help people get in new homes. Or first, I have a passion for working with first time home buyers. And I do get a lot of people that come to me and their credit, they may need some work. Sometimes people come and they actually are further along. It's not as bad as they thought it would be. So if I had someone come to me that wants to buy a home, I send them to you. Um, and I know you also do the home buyer education. What does it look like if they're coming to you specifically because they want to buy a home, and need to get that process going? What does that look like?
All right, so it's quite a few two ways, I would say. If they're ready to buy a home and if they talk to a lender, and but
Hmm.
they need the down payment assistance, and so as
Hmm.
a HUD counselor, the down payment assistance actually insists that you do attend a virtual. It could be a virtual, it could be in person workshop, but I do
Hmm.
hold my workshop once a month, and it's
Hmm.
usually from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then you would receive a certificate at the end of the workshop. But you also get to listen to the realtor talk, the lender, the insurance agent, because these are three vital information subject specialists that you would want to listen to. Because a lot
Mhm.
of people don't know what a realtor does. And what
Mhm.
has insurance got to do with it, you know? And
Mhm.
then on top of that, they would want to listen to, hey, what does a lender look for? And
Mhm.
so they can either register or they can actually email me and I can register them for the home ownership workshop. But that's
Mhm.
usually the workshops are advertised on the Operation Hope website and it will
Mhm.
tell you the date and time. And all you have to do is click on the link and register for the workshop. And it comes
And
through
there's no
online.
fee for that either, right?
Yeah, you don't pay for that either.
Mhm.
Because in the past I know that I had charged like for not me but the agency would charge like $50, and then some agencies are now charging 75 or more now per person.
Mhm.
So that's quite a bit of money. And if you're trying to save as much money as you can to buy your first home, every penny set aside is worth doing, worth putting aside for home ownership. And
Mhm.
so now, if a person is not ready, as you mentioned, they might be ready, but it's not too bad. But they can still register and enroll in the home ownership workshop, but they can
Mhm.
also, on top of that, register and enroll into the credit money management program. What we will do
Mhm.
is we'll talk about, when they can start looking for the home, or think about really literally going in and talking to a lender, get pre-approval, but we got to make sure that their score is right there in order for them to start the process. But in the meantime, it doesn't stop you from getting educated about
Right.
home ownership, right? Because
Right.
honestly, a lot of the folks that do attend my workshop, they are not really ready, but they may be ready in 6 months' time or a year's time. I,
Mhm.
yeah, I've had clients from last year buy homes in January and
Mm.
February and March and April. So, it goes in steps. So they may get the education first, prepare their finances, because in the workshop you learn about how to prepare your finances to buy the home. And on top of that, use who are the lenders that would work with you on the down payment assistance, because down payment assistance is actually done by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. So they would give you the down payment assistance, but the lender has to participate in that. So the
Right.
money comes from the state, and then maybe the lender has their own down payment assistance. So you get to layer them. So the more money you get, the more you can put towards the home, and the lesser your mortgage will be. So,
Right.
yeah, so that's how it works for Operation Hope a lot of the times.
And so, are there any income limits for somebody to qualify for your services? Like, or
Um,
it doesn't matter how much money they make?
it it actually has to be a consistent income, but it
Mhm.
has to meet the criteria of what they're trying to meet. And so, if they are not bringing in enough income to pay all their debts down, I do advise them to get a second job, and some of them do, and that's how they would actually get to where they need to be. Does that make sense? I hope it does.
Mhm.
Everyone.
So, if they don't make enough money, you would still take them in and
Yep.
guide them, but you might, and
Right.
I've had to tell people too, maybe you need to go do some Ubering or something
Right, right. And I do
do
tell
that.
them to get a second job, yes, to
Right.
supplement the income that they already have. Because most of the time it's not going to work if they don't. I mean, I can give them the courtesy and advise them as to, this is what you need to do after you talk
Mhm.
to me. And if they can't do that, we'll continue on the program, because it's going to be a hardship for them if I put a lot of stress as what you need to do. But,
Mhm.
you know, some people would say, okay, let me put a stop to this. Let me take what you've already given me, and I'm going to practice that. And then if I get a second job and I'm bringing down all my debts, I'm going to call you back. I mean, there's
Mhm.
no charge, right? You can come
Mhm.
back or you can give yourself a pause. But all in all, it's got to be you focusing and you wanting to achieve.
Right.
So I cannot make you do all that. We have
Absolutely.
a
So, but there's
bridge.
no cap. So if they make, because you were talking about earlier how people come in and they do, a lot of people make good money, but they don't have any savings. They have bad spending habits. So they're, if somebody made 200, $300,000, you all would still help them if they needed financial counseling.
Right. And we just
Okay. So
give them recommendations, but we do not impress that they do that because that would be us wanting what we want, right?
right.
So we make
Okay.
recommendations, but they have to follow those recommendations. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So you and I were talking before that I've been saying recently that this is converting to a buyer's market, but it sounds like from some of the reports we both saw on the news earlier today that it might actually already be a full buyer's market because there's more sellers now, and it's not consistent across the country in all areas, but more sellers than buyers. So if there, and a lot of buyers have been kind of waiting because of the interest rates and things like that, what would you say to someone that's been, maybe they're ready, but they've been holding off because of the interest rates? What are your thoughts or advice on, I'm just going to wait?
Well, most of the time, I would advise them to actually, if they're going to go ahead and buy, they have to make sure they could afford it. That's
Hmm.
it. Affordability is very important because when you go into to see a lender, it's usually, they would take your gross income and decide what you can afford to pay monthly. But
Hmm.
remember, we all get net pay after
Right.
the gross income, after benefits are taken out, what is left, what can we do with what's left? So
Hmm.
it has to be up to them to decide, can you really afford this? Are you ready to commit to it? Because if you're not ready to commit to it, and if you really cannot afford it, I would say be patient. Be
Hmm.
patient.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
always something coming up in the future. We don't know what it is, but the more money you set aside, the more financially stable you are, and the more money power you have to do what you want to buy. Maybe you want to buy a pre-existing home, and might meet the type of income you bring in. So you have to think about all those things. We do talk
Hmm.
about that during the home ownership workshop.
Hmm.
So it's a reminder to people that it is an investment, but you got to be able to afford that investment.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So I've seen a lot as a foreclosure prevention specialist. I've seen people going to a home and then maybe a month or two, they're not prepared for it because they did not attend any workshops, right? In our
Hmm.
workshop, we talk about life insurance. We
Hmm.
talk about all these emergency savings you have to have. So
Hmm.
basically what I do is I just make sure that they know everything that we need to know to be a successful homeowner in order for them to step out of their zone and then start thinking about buying a home, but you have to be able to afford it. That's why the best tool I could give you is actually the budget sheet.
Right. Yes, because that gives you your maintenance fund. Because I do tell people when you buy that home, there's no more landlord to call to say my toilet stopped up, my water heater died, or
Right,
whatever. You have to be
right,
prepared to take that
exactly,
maintenance part that you're talking about is so important
right.
um,
And
with
so
that.
that's why when during the workshop you'll hear the realtor talk more about buying the type of home that is for you.
Hmm.
Or if somebody's looking for a house that they don't have to worry about warranties, the first year, then a new build would be the one that you want. But then you have to
Hmm.
think about locations.
Hmm.
Those are the things that might impact you. It depends on where you want to live as well. That might
Right.
impact the price. So and if somebody is, how would you see this, approved for 400,000, don't go and hit the 400,000 limit.
Right.
Go a little
Yeah.
bit lower because it is much more affordable when it's lower. So,
Right.
yeah, you
Yes,
got to
that's
think about
exactly what I tell people.
utilities. You got to think about groceries, right? So, those are not included yet when they say this is what you can afford to pay every month. But then
Right.
after you do the budget, then you go, oh, wait, that's a little bit too much for me each month. So
Exactly.
you have
Because
to
you don't want to
relook
be house poor.
at yes, yes.
Looking at your house like, dang, I can't even go. I got to do a staycation because I went to the max of the budget. I can't
Correct.
travel or go to
Right.
the movies or go out to eat because
Right.
everything is going to the house. So,
Right. But I also teach them. Remember, I told you about the maintenance budget?
right,
Also tell them, well, you don't have to exactly put it in the maintenance budget, but you can budget if you want to treat yourself to a dinner out once a week or maybe twice a month, whichever it is, depending on your income. So I
right,
say, it isn't a bad thing to own a home. It's actually a good thing because you actually own the home. And
exactly.
nobody's going to say, nope, you can't sit on that chair or you can't plant roses in that patch. It's yours.
Mhm.
It's
Right,
yours. So,
right,
yeah.
right. And I do truly believe that real estate is a foundation in generational wealth building, owning real estate.
Right.
So I
And you can
do.
always downsize, right? At the later time,
Mhm.
if the longer you live
Right,
there,
right,
or you can just turn it into a rental property. And then you
exactly.
just go somewhere and go 6 months, maybe to Cancun and stay there, or go to Ecuador and the Galapagos and stay there for 6 months and then come back and see.
That sounds fabulous.
I know. And to be honest with you, a lot of people are doing that. They would
Right,
actually retire and they would live on the social security checks in all these other countries because the rate of a conversion rate for $1 American might be $4 something in another country. So,
right. Exactly, exactly. So home ownership, we agree that it is definitely, something to pursue, but you do have to be ready. And I tell a lot of people, they're like, well, should I wait or should I do? It's when you're ready, when the numbers make sense for you, then that's when you move forward with it, not just waiting for some magical time that interest rates and prices are low at the same time, because it's probably not going to happen. So get yourself together financially, save as much money as you can, even if you don't think you're quite ready, but continue to save, because like a lot of times people might get discouraged and then they go out and spend their savings because they're like, I'm never going to be able to buy a house. So don't do that. Continue to save as much as you can so that you can be prepared when the time is right for you. So that's what I would say about the add on to what you said about home ownership. I do want to talk briefly about, you mentioned the foreclosure. And so we were talking about people like at this point selling their homes that they've had just for a few years. And we know we're coming out of a really crazy home buying period where people were paying lots and lots of money for houses, sometimes sight unseen. And then this economy and job losses and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about the foreclosure prevention, and maybe, I don't know if you all do any short sale counseling. Can you talk a little bit about that process and what people could reach out to you for that?
again, they have to reach out through the website to register and
Mhm,
enroll. But
mhm,
foreclosure prevention, it all depends case by case, and you still have to have the income to actually hang on to the property itself.
mhm,
If you do have the income, the servicer or the company that you pay your mortgage to usually is on hand, ready to help you figure out a way that you can keep the home. And
mhm,
sometimes you may have a really good, family member that might be able to assume the mortgage to help it along so that you can keep the home. But again, that family member has to have enough money to keep
right.
the mortgage, right, on your behalf.
Mhm,
Most of the time, the foreclosure prevention can be done if you notice that something's going to go wrong with your income or anything like that. You need to contact the servicer who you're paying your mortgage to because they're
mhm,
the number one entity that you need to reach out to see if you can keep the home. But if you
mhm,
cannot keep the home, whatever equity you may have, you may think about selling it and taking the equity and then paying off the loan. So those are some of the options. But most of the time, If you cannot afford it, unfortunately, the servicer will not be able to help you because there's nothing they can do unless you can pay the mortgage. And
Mhm.
there
Mhm.
are times when you're behind maybe a month or two, but you cannot just think about, oh, I don't think I want to pay my mortgage this month. I would rather go buy that really nice purse, or something. No, you cannot do that. You have to actually prove that you are facing a hardship because
Mm.
once you cry wolf one too many times, right? They're not going to believe you. So
Mhm.
nowadays, because in the past that's what they would do, but nowadays you have to show that you actually suffered a financial hardship for them to actually help you. And sometimes they can lower or they can put the amount of money at the end of the mortgage term. And instead of maybe having, you got a few months left, but they're going to add it to the end of the term. And now you
Mhm.
have a few months more to pay the mortgage. They can do
Mhm.
that, but
Mhm.
they really cannot do it if you're way down the road and you are not paying your mortgage at all. Some
Mhm.
people did that during the pandemic, unfortunately.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
They have money coming in because most of the employers have the payroll protection program that the
Mhm.
government was giving them for small business loans, were giving them.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, they refuse to. They claim that they can't pay it because they're not working. Well, everybody
Mhm.
wasn't working, but they're working virtually and getting paid.
Mhm.
So a lot of the times, those are the folks that would fall really far behind, and they think they can catch up. But unfortunately, the lender do their due diligence in checking up on what you have stated before they can work with you.
Mhm.
So got to be careful. But this I have worked with a lot of mortgage servicers, and they're
Mhm.
always willing to help, but you got to be transparent and upfront
Mhm.
and
So
not afraid.
yeah. So I've seen that. Like so I've had some clients where I'm like, to get help if you're facing foreclosure is almost like just requalifying for the initial mortgage. So, like
Hmm.
you were saying, it's not, you can't just say, oh, I'm having this. They want to see your bank statements and check stubs and all of that
Right,
stuff. You can't just, like you said, just decide, oh, well, I'm not going to pay this. You got to show that they're going to be checking everything.
right,
With
right.
that. So,
Yeah, they have to confirm that you are actually, because people have to think about this. When you get a loan, there are investors that's backing up that loan. And the mortgage servicer has to pay those investors back. So
mhm,
that's why sometimes you see that you may have one mortgage servicer, one company doing it for a year, and then the next time you see they've sold the loan to another mortgage
mhm,
company. Now you have
mhm,
to work with the next mortgage company. But
mhm,
it all comes down to, the ability for for you to actually come through with your promise. You will pay the mortgage every month, and then, and there are times when you can refinance. There's
mhm,
always the
mhm.
future of the interest rates going down, and maybe now you're at 6%, but maybe down in the future, maybe next year, if you keep on paying, guess what? You're gonna be given 100% for being a good person who pays on a mortgage every month. So when the time comes, for you to refi to a lower rate, that's where your score is going to show. Hey, Rose paid her mortgage every month. She's done this for several years now. The interest rate is coming down. We're not going to say no to her because she paid it every month on time.
Right,
She's never late.
right.
So those are some of the history that you want to build in order for you to enjoy uh, the future, whereby the interest rates will go down and you can refi.
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah.
Yes. And I wanted to just add to what you were saying, though, is if you are in some sort of financial bind or if you see it coming, don't wait until it's too late. If you see it coming, reach out to someone, ask for help, and then be open because it may be that your best option is to sell. I've come across people who've had equity in their home, but they don't want to sell, and they just end up letting the bank take their house, and because they didn't want to reach out and talk to anybody. Sometimes we get prideful and we don't want to let somebody know that we are experiencing, a financial hardship or whatever, and then we just get paralyzed with fear, and next thing you know, the sheriff's knocking at your door and saying you got to get out at that point. So,
And I want to advise everyone that's listening in, if you are facing a hardship, don't be afraid to call the mortgage company and say,
mhm,
hey, listen, I've done this before where a person actually came in and said, Miss Rose, I just got laid off and I I know I'm gonna be late with my mortgage because I'm not getting the same amount of money for my unemployment. I
mhm,
said, wait, hold on, breathe. And so what
right,
we did was we just made one simple phone call, Latrice. And I
mhm,
introduced myself as a HUD counselor. And then my client gave permission for me to talk on his behalf. And I said
mhm,
to them, I said, what can you do for my client? Because he just lost his job today and he's
mhm,
waiting for unemployment to come in and he's not going to get the same amount of money coming in as if he was working a full-time job, right? Because he just
mhm,
lost his job. So, what can you do for him? This is the amount that he's gonna get for unemployment. So every week, this is the amount he's gonna get. But then his mortgage is this much, and you're going to deprive him of all his unemployment if we
mhm,
don't have a workout. And so, what they
mhm,
did on the spot, they said, "Listen, Mister So and So, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna give you a deferment for a few months and then let's say 6 months, and then you find a job, and then you can resume with
mhm, mhm,
whatever job you found and the new salary that you're going to get. You can resume the mortgage payment. So, what they're doing is that the 6 months worth of mortgage payment that this client of mine will not be able to pay, right? Because he's getting a reduced unemployment amount, they putting it to the end of the mortgage term.
mhm,
So
mhm.
see how that works? So now my client can go home and sleep, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
the person that he owes money to or the company he owes money to for the mortgage knows his situation. They're giving him 6 months to go find a job and then tell them exactly what you're getting. And then what they will do is they will work with you.
Right. And so, one key thing to understand about what you just said is that deferment, when they put it on the end, it doesn't go away.
No.
You're going to have to, you
Yeah.
have to pay it. And
Yeah.
I know that there was a lot in during the pandemic that people were offered these deferments and things like
Right.
that, and they
Right.
don't realize because some of them were actually they add them to the end, but they were as a second mortgage or as another loan. So it's, if you get your balance from that original servicer, that's not your payoff. So, and I'm saying this because, like, if you're going to sell your home, you need to make sure you let us know if you did this, because you want to make sure that you know what you're going to net. So if you did any sort of deferment or if you had any sort of additional lien, you need to share that with your realtor. And even
Right.
if you're not sure, don't just give us the balance on your current mortgage if you know that you've done a deferment, because sometimes they don't just put them in the same loan. They can be a second loan, and you don't want to get to closing or have accepted an offer and thinking that you're going to net XYZ, and it ends up being that you net significantly less because you forgot that the 6 months of payments was in a
Right.
separate loan. So
Right.
make
Right.
sure that you're thinking about all of those. And in any case, if even if you're, fine, but you're thinking about selling your home or whatever the situation is, just always be upfront. And even if you're not sure, just tell us as your realtor, as your listing agent, yeah, this might be, and we can find out so we know what's going on.
Right, right. And always be upfront because it's better for you and the people that you're having a relationship in terms of the financial contract you're having. So Those are some of the important things to remember. Don't be afraid of them, because
Right.
what you should be afraid of is that you think if you're not paying, that mortgage is going to remain at $1,600 with no interest. No, the $1,600 plus interest is going to grow and grow and grow if you don't keep on paying. Now
Right.
there's always so many options, Latrice, for
Right.
people to
Right.
work with, and always,
Right.
approach a HUD counselor, or and we can always have a way where we can talk to someone and see what the
Mhm.
workout would be. But don't wait too
Absolutely.
long, because it's going to be harder on you. So that's
Right.
my
And yeah,
advice. Yeah.
because you start getting behind, they won't accept partial payments. They want however many payments you owe. So communicate,
Right.
communicate, communicate. And
Right.
one other thing I'll add to it is if you are in a homeowners association, if you have an HOA,
Mm,
after your mortgage, that HOA is the next thing that needs to be paid because your HOA can foreclose on you.
right.
And their fees and things can be just astronomical. They can, get high really, really fast. So
Right.
you can make sure that you're always paying that HOA, your HOA dues.
And the way to get organized once you're a homeowner is this. I would say always, each year we have a set of payments that we do for our mortgage. So maybe set up, your 2025, and then next year you have a new folder, 2026, because,
Mhm.
when the mortgage, how to say, servicer send you the statement for the interest that you pay, and then you have to take it to your
Mhm.
tax preparer, make sure that's being reported correctly. So always pay attention to the statements they send you. Don't throw it away, because no, Latrice, they do throw it away. I said, no, 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 because that's how you know your mortgage loan is going down and down, not
Mhm.
going up and up. If it's going up and up, it's something wrong. So
Exactly.
keep all those statements in the 2025 folder, so that'll be easier for you in tax time, that you are, getting your
Right.
interest taken into consideration.
Exactly.
Yeah, so organization is very important once you become a homeowner. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yep.
And so, real quick, one last thing with business owners, do you help? Like, I know you help people with getting their credit together, and then you said you help business people that are business owners. Do you help guide like business owners that may not have a consistent income, that the income fluctuates? Do you work with those with business owners like that after they get their business started, or even maybe helping them prepare on how to plan for this inconsistent income?
Well, for the business owners, we do refer them to the small business coaches, so that they
Mhm.
work with them. But when it comes to credit, I can still help them. But unfortunately, if their income is inconsistent, there's something wrong. Either their business is not being advertised fully, and they're not getting clients, that's paying on time, or even if their clients are not paying them. So that might be the cause of some inconsistent income. And of course,
Mhm.
some of the business owners nowadays, when they start a business, they forget that you have to set up a business account and your personal account, because the way that we know that a business is successful is when the business can afford to pay you, even though you're the business owner. And
Right.
that's how they would determine if you're going to get a loan. So if they see
Mhm.
the business has any surplus income and still paying you, your benefits, your salary, or whatever it is, and still pay all the other operational expenses, and there's still a pot of money left over, that's how they know a business is successful.
Right.
But if it's not, there's always resources locally that can help figure out, because they do have volunteers such as SCORE, they do have the SBA, and then Wake Tech also have volunteers that can teach business owners on how to reorganize, revamp, get free marketing advice. Those are some of the places you want to reach out to.
Okay. All right, Rose. Thank you so much again for joining me today. Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice? I always like to leave people with, some type of encouragement to make your move. So what would you tell everybody?
There's no such thing as I can't do it.
Mm.
There's no such thing as I can't do it because, if I had said that to myself a long time ago after getting out of college, I would not be a homeowner today,
Mm. I love
right?
it.
And also assisting others to believe that they can do it. And the strongest tool is that budgeting tool.
All right. I love it. Absolutely. So operationhope.org is the website where you can go and even if you're not in North Carolina, you can go and find a location that works for you and schedule an appointment for what your specific needs are. And again, all of their services are free. I'm usually one who says you get what you pay for. But in this case, you're getting way more than what you pay for. So, take advantage of it and make it work for you. Because a lot of times when we don't pay for stuff, we kind of take it for granted or we don't see the value in it. So, there's value in this, even though they're not charging you for it. So, I encourage you to go and take advantage of it. And Rose, there's a book that you gave away at our Building Black Wealth tour. Can you share the name of that book
I
as
think
well?
it's Financial Literacy for All, and it's by John Hope Bryant.
Financial literacy for all. So I know you spoke very highly. I didn't win the book and I did not buy it, but I'm going to put it on my list to get it. So financial literacy for all.
Yeah,
And
it's a good book for you to read, for everyone to read. And to be honest with you, it does knock some sense into yourself, what you need to do. Success doesn't happen overnight, but if you work hard on it, there's nothing that you can do.
okay. All right. Well, thank you again so much. I'm going to give you a few minutes of your day back because I know you got a full schedule for the rest of the day. So I appreciate you joining me again and look forward to us doing another session that we talked about. And then you also partnering with us with the Triangle Wealthy Group. And I did want to make an announcement that the Triangle Wealthy Group is hosting a Juneteenth event, which will actually be on Juneteenth. You can go and register for that at twgpresents.com. We're going to be talking about multifamily commercial investment. We have some really esteemed guest speakers. We have James Monty Montague. We have Tiffany Elder. We have Ocean. We have a lender. So we'll just have a jam packed day of information on Juneteenth. It is twgpresents.com. We'll also be providing breakfast and lunch, and we'll be touring some homes. But this is just an opportunity to learn about different multifamily commercial opportunities for investment. So wanted to share that, and I again appreciate you, Rose, for joining me today. And I wanted to thank you too for allowing me to speak at your homebuyer seminar last month. I love speaking at those. I hope that I get the opportunity to do that again in the future. So
Yeah, look
that's
for
all.
an invite.
I will be on the lookout. I love that. That's just, when you get a first time home buyer at any age in a home, it's just
Right.
something extra rewarding about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Latrice. I really appreciate the time you've given me, and I hope I've helped everyone, uh, you know, put forth their financial goals on a piece of paper and decide when they're going to reach it. So,
Absolutely.
thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.